Hi guys, in this video I'll be doing a recap of our 2023-2024 school year. I'll try to follow our planner sheets, how our subjects was scheduled, so that I can have a little bit of order to this video because I have quite a few books here. And I'll also try to stick in the order of my 8th, then 5th, then 3rd graders, third grader, and where applicable, because some of the subject areas only applied to my eldest. And I will also try to remember to put some timestamps at the bottom of the video. All right, so the beginning of the last school year started off really, strong for myself. I was actually really motivated, probably to the point where, I did something that I said that I wouldn't have done a couple years ago, which is, so to speak, overbuy. And, I added in extra stuff to, on my plate, to our schedule. And eventually I had to, take it off my plate and reschedule it to be done at a different time. And when I get into those subjects, I will talk a little bit more about that. You live, you learn, you make mistakes along the way. Also, the last couple months of our homeschool was a little bit, well, not a little bit, it was actually really, tough for myself. Without going into detail, but that is, part of homeschooling. Life happens, and it did affect, how we finished. We did not finish as strong as, we started. And I did sit down and, talk with the kids. But all in all, I am happy with where they're at. There's a book that I had on our shelves for quite a few years, that because of how we ended, I did actually use that to kind of, I so to speak, like catch my bearings. I kind of make sure that we are not ending off, so to speak, behind. I don't know if that makes sense. We did finish, most of our curriculum, because for the most part, when my eldest, she does most of her stuff on her own, and a lot of the things that we were doing together, with the exception of her writing curriculum, we had kind of finished a lot of those things early on in the year, like the history books that we were reading, and also her logic. We actually finished that earlier on. But anyway, as I get into each subject area, I will try to dive a little bit deeper into that, and hopefully you find something, that might be useful in this video. All right, so I'm going to start with the language arts block. For my eldest, for reading comprehension, she did Reading Detective B1 by the Critical Thinking Company. For grammar, she did Fixed Grammar Book 4. And both of these worked well. They got the job done. Not too easy, but not too difficult. Easy to follow along for both her and myself. She did these independently, and she was finished with these pretty early on in the school year. However, I did not replace it with a new curriculum because there are some other areas that, she needs a little bit more time to work through some of those areas. So I felt that, it just freed up some time for her to do that. However, what I did get her was this book as a reference. This is Harvey's Revised English Grammar. Now, this is a curriculum recommended for 7th and 8th graders, but it can also be used in high school. But based on some reviews and, just looking at it, I just bought it for her as a reference. Now, my kids have, your kids have things that they naturally gravitate to. For her, it's writing. One of my children is cooking. Another one is science. And if I can get them little things to kind of egg them on in those areas that they're naturally interested in, then I try to do that as much as possible. So, and grammar kind of goes with writing. So once in a while, I'll pick her up little reference books that she can use as she's doing her writing, because she writes as a hobby, right? So anyway, so I got this for her as a reference, but I'm showing it because she chose to read this during the time that she had allotted for grammar for the rest of the school year. I know she read through it once. I'm not sure if she's going through it a second or a third time. So that's grammar. Now for literature studies, I had planned for her to do both The Golden Goblet and The Giver. Now she did read both books, all right? And I did read The Golden Goblet with her just to be able to follow along. However, we only did the study guide for The Goblet. However, she did it in quite detail. Excuse me. Now this says grades 7 to 9. And I didn't plan on using it as a half credit, but I think I can. And I don't know, I'll have to do some research and just make sure it's okay. And if anybody knows, feel free to comment and let me know. But it says grade 7 to 9 here. So even though we didn't finish it, we did not do it, now I might be able to consider it as something that she can, kind of get a half credit for. Just something to consider. But anyway, we did start off the year doing a lot of the little pre-recommended activities. But we didn't go on like to the museum, but we did spend time looking at YouTube videos and visiting a couple websites to learn more about Egypt so that she can better, do the study guide for the Golden Goblet. And as I said, she did this in quite detail. She completed the entire thing. This does have a lot of scripture in it, and it has them read that scripture and then, see how the characters' behavior goes for or against that particular scripture. It does define like unfamiliar terms so that they are able to do the activities, but they would have to understand what a theme and a plot is, even though it just defined the terms in here. I think the benefit though of us doing just this one, even if I don't use it as a credit, is that if I was considering using it in high school, but we had never done it before. But because she did it in such detail, if we did use it in high school, now she knows what to expect because she did it. She's used it and used it in, to its entirety. So using it in high school should come a little bit easier because she knows the flow, if that makes sense. All right. So anyway, so that is literature studies. I'm talking about study guides. I showed this earlier on as well. This is Poetry Matters by Ralph Fletcher. Now, she's not a big poetry person, but I just wanted to expose her a little bit. For a minute, I had considered a poetry curriculum, but I had scrapped that because I think that would have just been stressful. But what I did get her, these are not grade specific, definitely not grade specific, but I bought these to add on our shelves to add a little bit of poetry. They're all poetry for young people, and she read through them at the beginning of the term pretty quickly, and I don't think she read through them again. As I said, she's not big into poetry. But anyway, Emily Dickinson, Maya Angelou, Langston Hughes, and Robert Frost. So it didn't really last very long, but I did buy her those at the beginning of the school term, and this she has on her shelf together with her grammar book and a couple other reference books that I've picked up specifically for her, over the years. Anyway, for vocabulary, she used book 8, The Worldly Wise. I think for her this was a great fit. If you have a child that would benefit from going deep, like doing a deeper word study, then The Worldly Wise is excellent. It might be a bit much for a child who just basically wants to get the job done, but for her this was a very great fit. And a lot of the words she actually used in her everyday language, and sometimes we'd have to ask her what's the meaning of that. All right, but because it has words that you probably don't use in your everyday language. So anyway, so there's a list of words, and there's usually one that's underlined, and they're going to do an enrichment activity later on called a vocabulary extension. So they have the definition of the words, they have to find the meanings, they apply the meanings, they look at the vocabulary in context, and then sometimes they have like this, but not sometimes. For all of them, they have like this fun and fascinating facts section, and it will take a couple of the words from that week's list of words, and if there's any like historical fact or something that those words are connected to, I guess they consider that fun, and they will have like a little fact section there that they can check out. And then for the vocabulary extension, they have a discussion and writing prompt area where they can, well, she would draw different, like sometimes you can't see that, but sometimes she would draw the prompts, and also they have to use that word in a couple and write out a couple sentences using the word correctly. And that's the general layout. But anyway, this Worldly Wise worked great. So together with possibly a literature guide, I'm also considering like this Worldly Wise as part of her language arts block, because I really do like this for her. So So anyway, so that is vocabulary. And then for writing, we are ending with book 5 in the Writing Rhetoric series. I did a video a while ago now explaining that we will not be using this series anymore. This was such an excellent curriculum for her. I really wish that I had discovered it earlier on in her homeschool journey. However, you know, your kids grow and they grow out of stuff, and at this stage in her homeschool journey, even though she did enjoy this curriculum, she has her interests, you know, does lie, you know, elsewhere, to be quite honest. But it's still an excellent curriculum. I've said this before, but this layout that they have here never worked for us. We always went over. Sometimes, you know, we'd spend 2 weeks, sometimes 3, on a lesson, because when, like in this book, when she's doing the outline activities, it would take her a while because she would go in depth and really try to do a good job. And the refutation and confirmation exercises were also challenging. In this book 5, she also mentioned that the stories were not a little. She said they were significantly more challenging for her, and this is a child that reads a lot. So sometimes I know that there were a couple stories that she had to read through, you know, twice before she attempted the different exercises within the book. But we use Writing Rhetoric, and that is where we're going to be stopping with that series, unfortunately. All right, so that is language arts for my 8th grader. And for my 5th and 3rd graders, most of their curriculum, I use the same thing. Just a few of them would be different grade levels, but some of them, you know, I did use the same grade level. All of your kids learn differently, and, you know, I just kind of do, you know, what fits for them. But anyway, for writing, I use the Writing with Ease with my 5th and 3rd graders, and I am happy to say that I am done with Writing with Ease. I've used this curriculum for such a long time. I do have book 4, but I will not be using it with them. I do not think I will. You know, I want to put that slight disclaimer, but I don't foresee myself using book 4 with them. Not because it's difficult, but because I'm tired. But anyway, this is a good introduction to writing, with them understanding how to read a passage, pull out the details, summarize a passage, work on dictation exercises. It does introduce a little bit of poetry and the understanding, you know, the stanza, you know, the rhythm of a poem, you know, and all of that. So, you know, it's effective, but I've used it for quite a while, and I think we're done. And we're completely finished with that. All right, so for grammar, I used Fix It Grammar Book 2 with both of them. And this curriculum did exactly what I wanted it to do for them, which is to help them understand how words function within a sentence. Just the specific words, the specific phrases, and being able to identify whether it's a subject, a predicate, a who, which clause, you know, and just looking at those things isolated. I think this curriculum is excellent for that. It did the job, and they actually understand it and can pick it out. And that's why I really like this curriculum for them. Now, they got through this, I think sometime in April. And what I had them do after that was starting with book 1, go over the different lessons or concepts, that they learned. Not do over the exercises, just read through the concepts in preparation for some practice books that I have them working through the summer, that is having them work. They're working through building strong sentences, and then that's what they're working through now, and then they're going to be moving on to building, or, you know, short stories using some Evan-Moor books, right? And I'm hoping that this is my hope, because I'm trying to bridge the gap between they understanding how to pull out details in a story and understanding the parts of a sentence, and how to take those two and be able to write better sentences and write better short stories themselves, right? So that's why I had them go over both book 1 and book 2 during the fourth quarter. All right. So that's writing and grammar in a nutshell. For spelling, they're finished with All About Spelling Level 3. This is a strong curriculum. Also the All About Reading Level 3. We have a few lessons in this one. Now, this has 7 books, and sometimes some things you learn after the fact. You know, I like these they're very good curriculums. Over time, and I was having a discussion with my eldest who did all of them. The question can be made if it is based on the price, how much of it actually is going to stay with them. That being said, however, it does go in depth in teaching all of the different rules, and mechanics when it comes to both spelling and reading. So when it comes to teaching it, it does an excellent job, and it does a very in-depth job. So there's that. And most likely we are going to continue with it. I'm just, sometimes you think, you just have these thoughts. And I am wondering how much of it is going to, stick. But anyway, we are finished with All About Spelling level 3. And I like this All About Spelling, maybe because both of them go hand in hand, and because we do a lot of these, because I do the All About Reading with them, a lot of times the activity that they have to do, we would have covered at least some angle of that, topic in the All About Reading already. So I'm able to just give them the book and the board, and they're able to go through it on their own, which makes it a lot easier for everybody. And if it's something that they are struggling with, then I might go over it with them again at a later date. But All About Spelling is a little bit easier to get through than the All About Reading. Only because the All About Reading has a lot more activities. Now, that being said, I don't use the activity books with them anymore, but still, it does require you to, have them build the different words using the new phonogram concept and really go through it with them in the hopes that, the new reading rule that they're learning is going to stay with them. All right. Anyway, all of that to say, we are still using the level 3. We just have a little bit, just these exercises to finish. So I'm going to finish that off, God's Spray, in the new term, and then the last book is the level 4. I did quite a few videos on these after owning them for so long. And level 4, once we start using that, I'll probably do a lesson with me video on that, and wrap that All About Reading video series up. So anyway, so that's All About Reading. For cursive writing, and they used to really enjoy cursive writing, and not so much anymore. And I'm kind of debating if it is I want them to continue with it. But anyway, my eldest, she had started this sometime late in the last school year, and she finished this one up early this school year. That's the cursive success for my 5th grader. She finished that one up, and this is my 3rd grader. She did the cursive handwriting. For vocabulary, I use the Scholastic series with them. Now, this is a series that I had picked up after watching YouTube a couple years well. And I just had them on the shelf, so I decided to use them this year. And I had started off with the 5th and 3rd grade books. But these were very easy. They got through them like very quickly, and I would say it wasn't challenging at all. However, because I had the series, I just had them move on to the grade 6 and grade 4. And I would say that if it is you wanted to use this series, my opinion, I would go a grade above, I think that it gets the job done. It introduces them to new words. It uses those words in sentences. A lot of, it goes through homophones, compound words, antonyms, synonyms. And sometimes it tends to use a lot of words that, more common words, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are aware of those words. And it's sort of supposed to be grade specific, not necessarily challenging words that you will find in the Worldly Wise. But if you have a child that more like they just want to get their work done, then I think these books are great for that. I think I mentioned earlier on that I had them do a little bit of a spelling test using the word list. Or if I didn't mention it, I had them do a little bit of a spelling test where I had them use words from their vocabulary books and also multiplication and division. And we just did that for during the 2nd and 4th quarters. And my hope is that some of those words would stick with them, like as part of their vocabulary. They're actually words that we learned when we were using an Evan-Moor series that my kids use today. So it has become part of their vocabulary, not all, and I wouldn't say a lot, but a few, and my elder, she actually does, use words from her Worldly Wise, and a lot of times we might have to ask her what that word means. So that's my goal, that some of the words that they learn, don't matter if it make them be more advanced or not, just have them, some of the new words that are new to them, have it be cemented as part of their vocabulary. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, and then lastly, in the language arts block, for reading comprehension, my 5th and 3rd graders used the Critical Thinking Company as well. They did Reading Detective Beginning. Again, I really like the series. It gets the job done. It's easy to follow along, and it exposes them to what it is they should be knowing when it comes to, reading comprehension, based on their grade, right? So I really like the series. Someone had introduced it to me earlier on, like probably a couple years ago, in one of my videos. Somebody left a comment, and I have loved, quite a few books from the Critical Thinking Company once I was, exposed to this publishing company. But anyway, so that takes care of the language block. All right, so now I will do science and math. And for my eldest, for science, we used the Dive Earth Science for her to get 1 credit towards high school. And even though our official school year has ended, she's actually still studying for the final exam, because she said she wanted to try to maintain her average. All right. So overall, I'm very happy with the fact that we did go with Dive's online science. But there is a con that I experienced using this program. I'll share that in a minute. Now, this is not really connected to the curriculum per se, but this worked out because, I guess more often than not, sometimes things just doesn't go the way how you would like it to. And with us having a little bit of a disruption at the latter part of our school year, mostly because of something that with me, it did not affect her negatively, right? Because we had finished her logic earlier than expected, for her health, the section that she wanted both of us to sit down and read, we had read that earlier on in the year, right? And because Dive Science, most of it she was able to do on her own online, and whatever experiment she wanted to try, we had already completed that earlier on in the school year. It just all worked out that it did not disrupt her credit subjects. Because whenever things happen and we had to take subjects off of our plate, I always try to make sure that she got her credit subjects done, right? So that's that. All right, so some of the pros. I do like the fact that it's all corrected online, and I didn't have to correct anything. That definitely took a load off of my shoulder. And I also like the fact that it is very possible, and they state that in the curriculum, where they're able to do this entire curriculum without doing any of the activities. Now, we did we did do some of the activities earlier on, but she's not like a child that really loves science. She just want to do well, in the subject, but kind of get through it. Hopefully that makes sense. So she wasn't really interested in doing a lot of the actual experiments, right? I did not buy the kit by Nature's Workshop. However, I did buy additional, just a few, specific items that I thought we would have used and we actually did not use during the year. And I'll show what it is we actually did use. So anyway, so those are two pros. Now, the one con that we experienced using this is that at least 4 times during the school year, the site, was down. But that's technology for you. And this was by accident, but because I, always prioritize her credit subject, for the few times where she was not able to do it, it did not really set her back. So that's what I would recommend, that, they prioritize doing any online subject, so that if it is the website is down, then it wouldn't set them back too far. Because, technology can be like that. But anyway, so overall, I'm very happy with this program. She did say that it was challenging at times, but it was definitely doable, right? I'll definitely have, recommend, like reading the instructions and stuff before actually, starting the program. So that's that. When it comes to some of the items, if they were to do none of the activities at all, they had no interest, they just wanted to follow along with the videos, which is possible. It's like watching science videos on YouTube, which my kids actually enjoy watching science videos, right? So they could not get anything, but they would still need a scientific calculator, and most people might have a scientific calculator. But if they wanted to try like some of the rock experiments in the early part of the curriculum, they'll need a 100 ml cylinder. This one is plastic. I actually have a glass one because I used to make kombucha a few years ago, but I was afraid it would break. But anyway, they would need a cylinder, then a mineral test kit, and I'll put a picture so you can see what's in here. The mini scale, she did use these. She did use like these things, and then definitely this rocket. Now I did try buying a cheaper rocket, and it just turned out to be something that now my 11 and 9-year-old, they play with, because they like that kind of stuff, right? So they actually do use it and separate it into containers, and put the identify the types of rocks and put it into different containers. They like that kind of stuff, but it did not have some of the rocks that was required to do some of these streaking tests in this curriculum in that cheaper rocket. So definitely recommend the one that they recommend that you get. All right, so anyway, so that is Dive Science. For science for my younger two, I used Planet Earth. Now I did want to try to use the I think it was weather as well, but we really dug into this Planet Earth. I've had this curriculum for so many years, and I want to say that this year I got the most use out of this curriculum than any year that we've used this curriculum before. And that's the truth. We did the entire Planet Earth, and that's probably because this is an area that they're interested in. Now, my youngest in particular, she likes, to do, she likes the planets, and she's very, very, very science-oriented child, but she specifically likes, things to do with, like the solar system and all of that. But she also likes to be outside and digging up dirt and rocks and that kind of stuff. So anyway, that being said, because I know that it's an area that they really enjoy, I just took advantage of that fact. And instead of trying to cram in two different curriculums, I just spent a lot of time doing this, right? We finished the entire, Earth, Planet Earth curriculum. We also they did most of the worksheets and lab sheets as well. And even though we did not use the Dive Science human body and plants this year, because I am I am a new gardener and enjoying it a lot, and I pull them into it as much as possible. They by default they also learned a lot of things in the garden this year, right? And then the human body, I started to reintroduce some new terms and information with regards to the human body to them as well this year. But that was using a different book, and I will kind of try to squeeze that in at the end. It wasn't in depth, but just certain, they did do a little bit of human body. But for science, we mostly did Planet Earth. Hopefully that is not too much all over the place. And then for math, they all did Math UC. All right. My eldest used the pre-algebra, my 5th grader used Delta, and my 3rd grader used Gamma. Now, I always used to purchase the manuals with the curriculum, and this year I've had to actually go to the manuals for both, not Gamma, for Delta and pre-algebra. Specifically with Delta, my 5th grader was really struggling with finding the area of different quadrilaterals and triangles. Well, it's just right angle triangles. And by us, it's explained very simply in here. But we sat down together, we went through it. She looked over the videos. Then I did print out a few practice questions. I think it's from Salamander or some other math website, because unfortunately, that's the one thing I am not too happy about when it comes to Math UC Online. Sometimes the actual subject area that I want to get extra practice sheets from happens to be that lesson that there's no worksheets that can be generated online. And it just so happened, I know 13 is one of those area chapters, and I can't remember the other two, but those 3 lessons that I needed practice sheets for, they weren't available. They didn't have any extra sheets, and she had already done the ones that that was in the math book. But anyway, so I did print out some extra worksheets, and because math is something that I do try my best to correct, even though and I'm talking for now for both my 5th and my 3rd grader, if they did get it wrong, we would go over what we needed to do so that they can, revisit the topic, and then I would just have them do the corrections, in there, so that to see if it is they now understand what it is they didn't understand before. Hopefully that makes sense. But anyway, so during this term, I did have times where we had to kind of go back and then go forward. Now, I told my 11-year-old that I'm going to quote her, and she said that Math, you see, is one of those programs that has been very useful throughout the year, right? And I'm quoting her to say that even though they did have a little bit of a hiccup, this year, and we did have to move slower than we usually did, I am still very happy with Math, you see, right? That being said, though, during the summer, in addition to little things, just very little that they're all doing, they are still working through corrections with math. And we might try to see if we can squeeze in the test book, but if we can't, I have the mind to just pick up from where we left off at the beginning of the new school term, and then, try to have a more productive year next year. So that's my approach with math. With math, I try to be as thorough as possible, just so that they don't have any gaps in math, so that's just my approach with math. But anyway, so very happy with this. Now, when it comes to math for high school, at this 99th hour, I'm still undecided. I'm not sure if it is I am going to continue with Math, you see. Probably if I do continue with Math, you see, I'm going to try to see if I can use the legacy, what they call legacy Math, you see, and not the new Math, you see. But if I don't, I am considering Sherman Math, if not Math, you see. But we'll see. All right, so that is math and science. All right, so now on to history. Now, before I get into this, I want to say that even though this year we had a little bit of a disruption in the later part of our school year, I feel like when it comes to science and social studies, history being a part of that, I feel like we've covered a lot more this year than a lot of our earlier school years. There was quite a few years prior where I would leave the school year feeling like I wonder if we covered enough science, or we covered enough, history. And I've had to learn history alongside them throughout the years. And I would say that this year I feel a lot more confident in where we're at in both science and, history within our homeschool. Not that we know everything, but I feel a lot more confident with regards to what it is they have been exposed to, at this point. Anyway. So for my 8th grader, we started off the school year reading through Howard Zinn, A Young People's History of the United States, and A Different Mirror by Ronald Takaki, and we read through these together. And she specifically enjoyed A Different Mirror. These were definitely, nice reads, and we read through these together. So we started off the school year with those. Now, these workbooks by Mark Twain Media, she actually started these in the 7th grade and finished them off this year. Now, the book on the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, she finished earlier on in the school year, and these workbooks she picked up after she finished the U.S. Constitution. Now, this series, depending on the topic that they have them researching, it might require them to do further research, whether using certain websites, or if depending on what type of a reference, history or Constitution reference books you may have, whether it's at home or at the library, they are required to do further research. Now, of course, they don't have to do everything, but that's just something to take into consideration, in doing this. All of the information that they need, a lot of it is in here, but they are required to do further research. They're encouraged to do further research, which might, suggest using online website, because I know everybody feels differently about, that kind of stuff. Anyway, this series is what encouraged me to pick up this American History series, volume 1 and 2, because the way how the years are split, it's very similar to how it is in this series. Now, the interesting spin with this, said by Thomas Kidd, is that it is American history in detail, but it looks at the role that Christianity played in history, and how that role diminished over time as we, came closer and closer to contemporary history. So that's the interesting spin on this. It does not go into scripture, though, and ask you to actually pull out specific scripture. I don't think so, right? But it does have a Christian reference, right? And she really enjoyed this. She read through the both of them, I believe, twice, but I'm talking about a child that really likes to read, right? So this was a good history choice as well. Now, this was more so nighttime reads, but it just so happened it was centered around history. As I said, this year we actually did a lot of history. I don't have it here because I had borrowed it from the library, and I think it's called An Anthology of Amazing Women or Great Women. I might have a picture and insert it here. During the school year, I would be like Monday to Thursday, just before they go to bed. That schedule I was able to keep up with, where I would read, a little, no matter how short it was, I would read from that book to them, and we kind of discuss the different women in history that it had in that book. We would go through, after we read to a certain point, we would decide or discuss like which woman in that book we found to be our favorite or whatever, just to kind of get them more involved. So we did that for a portion of the year, and then I moved on. I just, picked a Black American history book that we had here, and I chose this one because I bought this a while ago and I actually never read through it. In my what do I want to say? It's not very, in my opinion, it's not very in-depth. Now, I'm sure this is probably more geared to like a younger audience, probably. It's not very in-depth. Like I was saying to my kids, if anything, it is definitely a reference of different people. And remember, you're talking to somebody who did not grow up here, and everything is new. So it's a reference of people in Black heroes in American history. So if nothing else, if I wanted to learn more about someone in here, I have I could go through and find a name and read what it has here, but then do further research. Hopefully that makes sense. But I'm trying to get through it, right? So we did do this, and we did an anthology of amazing women as well. All right, for my 5th and my 3rd graders, we continued with the 180 days series for both geography and social studies, and we did this in the 1st and 2nd semester, because in the 3rd and 4th semester we had moved on to financial literacy. And this series, I like this 180 days series. It's not in depth. It does require you to incorporate videos, probably read a little bit extra in other texts, but it does cover a decent amount of history, right? So I like this series, and this worked out well. All right, so anyway, so that closed off history for this year. All right, so before I move on to the last 3 main subject areas, I just wanted to mention this core knowledge sequence book. Now, I've actually owned this for quite a few years. When you look at it from this angle, it is skill and content and skill guidelines for preschool, and then if you flip it, it is grades K to 8. Over the years, I can't tell you when I discovered this, but I remember very early on in my homeschool journey, when I was trying to figure out how, what it is to, to put together to call homeschool, not having, have gone to school here. I was looking for, something, and I remember I used to be hopping around websites, seeing if anybody had, did a post on all of the different topic areas he's supposed to cover. And I think that's how I had discovered the What Your Kid Needs to Know series. And then I know it was earlier on in my homeschool journey, I discovered this. Now, over the years, once in a while, I would refer to it. It kind of gave me almost like just a mental comfort, but in reality I actually did not use it very much. That's me being honest. However, this year, mainly because my eldest is finishing off, her elementary years, and we're heading into high school, and because we had a little bit of a hiccup at the last part of the year, I guess I wanted to just kind of skim through and see if it is, we covered, a lot of topic areas that she should have covered throughout the years before heading into high school. Just, my mind. But anyway, so we looked through just the K-8, and, we sat down, we went through the different topic areas, and very, very quickly, not in depth, right? And if there was any specific names that she never heard of, we, did a quick search using Gemini. I know everybody feels differently about, technology and stuff, but that's what we did. And all in all, there was just a few names, like specifically in history, that she never heard of. And a lot of the languages, if not all, she covered at some point throughout her school years. The only thing for us is that she wasn't familiar with a lot of like the Latin and like I believe it's French phrases that they suggest that they be exposed to. And we didn't go into depth in looking into it, but some of them she did look into it, like some of the foreign phrases, right? But anyway, so that's what I did for her. And for my younger two, this tied in, this brought in a lot of history and science, because similarly, I had both of them in my, in another room, and I would look up information, but I would put grade 5, grade 3 or grade 5, and then look up certain topic areas. We just did a little bit of that. So this was later on in the school year. My younger two, they had finished cursive and reading comprehension and grammar. A lot of their subjects they were already finished with. So we were able to, do this, so to speak, to make sure that we didn't have a lot of gaps. I actually thought it was fun. They thought it was fun because we was looking up stuff, and if we had to look at a video, but just using this as a guide. So anyway, I just want to mention this because this actually kind of tied in a little bit of mostly history and science, a little bit of grammar when it comes to foreign phrases for my eldest, but a lot of science and history, we kind of touched using this towards the end of the two. All right, so for financial literacy, we used the Evan-Moor series. For my 8th grader, she used the book for 6th to 8th graders, and my 5th and 3rd graders, we used grade 3 book. A lot of the activities, my 8th grader, she did on her own. There were a few activities that required both of us to do them together, but we didn't do all of them, but we did a great portion of it. So it was fine. It just introduced a few financial terms, but this is a topic that I enjoy talking about outside of a curriculum, so I'm not too worried about it. So that's that. So this curriculum was fine. For my 5th and my 3rd graders, however, I am going through this slowly because I am enjoying doing some of the, playing some of the games and activities with them. So we started this during the 3rd quarter, and we've only completed about half of it. Well, just a little bit under half of it. So I'm just going to continue most likely with this same book in the next school year, and then most likely I already have the book 4 and book 5. We'll just go through this series slowly. All right, so that is financial literacy. And then lastly, for our main curriculum, I have health and logic for my eldest. Now, health, she used the Life Pack series, and this series was fine. A lot of it she was able to do on her own. Now, there was a section in, I don't know if it's book 1 or book 2, that she did want us to sit down. Right, it was book 1 actually. She did, we did sit down and kind of read through that together. Outside of that, it does have a lot of scripture reference as well in this, and some of it does encourage them to read that actual the actual scripture. So that's something to take into consideration. But this got the job done. She enjoyed the series. It was simple enough for her to do, not too difficult. and this gave her a credit in health. So this was a good choice. And then lastly, logic. I did do a video covering this. One thing that I think I forgot to mention in that video is it's not really a con, it's just that the test is only in the teacher's manual. Now for most people that wouldn't be a problem. You just give them the teacher's manual and have them write in it. But that's if you're using it for one child, but that's a different story. But anyway, so that's the only thing. But for her, this was an excellent pick. She actually really enjoyed this. She still looks at the different fallacies, and if we're having casual conversation, there's a few fallacies that I remember, and I would apply accordingly. But she has really taken to it, to the point where she was actually talking about possibly trying to do go further with this. But that's probably something that we would not be doing. But all in all, we really did enjoy this the art of argument. Right? I think it is something that if it is you are considering doing, it might be more beneficial if you're not like in a classroom setting or have multiple kids at the same level, where you as the parent might want to try to do it with them so that they can have somebody to kind of discuss the fallacies with. I don't know how effective it might be if they just sat down and read the fallacies and then just do the questions. But that's in my humble opinion. All right, so that covers health and logic. All right, so that takes care of our main curriculum, and then they had their extracurricular activities, which at the beginning of the school term, I said that that's definitely something that I wanted to prioritize. So they call them 20-minute things, and every day, well, not with the exception of Friday, they had like 2 or 3 things that they would spend 20 minutes, at least 20 minutes doing. And if it is they had extra time, they would pick something else that they would use their free time to do. And that's how they were able to, keep up with doing the things that they enjoy doing outside of just a curriculum, right? So whether that was their gardening, their sewing, coding, little things like that, that's how we were able to incorporate those other things without it being part of their main curriculum and feeling overwhelmed, but at the same time allowing them to do things that they're interested in and not just focusing on curriculum. I really wanted to prioritize the extracurricular activities this year, and I am happy to say that we actually did well in that area. Also, another thing that I wanted to do this year, I did want them to start to learn how to actually do a lot more hair and stuff. That didn't really work out so well, but what did work out is they have been spending a lot more time cooking in the kitchen with me. But I'm not going to go into too much detail with that. I'm just going to wrap up this already very long video. If by chance you've listened to this point, thank you very much for checking out the video, and I will talk to you in another one. Take care. Bye.